Hi loves, welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna be making some Vietnamese noodle soup. So when I first got to Kenya, I looked everywhere for the soup because as soon as it hit like a colder weather, I wanted something that was hearty and warm. And yes, you can get noodle soup in a lot of different places, but there was nowhere that sold pho. And so my hankering for this soup was so big that I went out of my way to make it myself. So I thought this is a great thing to share on here because I was able to find most of the ingredients that I needed from different places, and I wanted to show you how to make it so that you could try it at home. It is delicious. My kid loves it. My family, all of my family eats it. I mean, even back in the States, my entire family eats pho. So I would highly recommend that you try this recipe. For now, let me just give you a preview of what it looks like when you start to make it. So there's a number of different steps that are involved when you're making pho, but the biggest thing that you're going to need is soup bones. So here I have 1.5 kgs of soup bones that I just got from a local butchery. I've got a flank steak, I believe, or a rump steak. I forgot which one this is. But yeah, you just get any big hunk of steak, any big hunk of meat that you want. And this is gonna boil down and become very soft. But the key thing is that you need these bones. This is where the flavor comes from. I will also be adding some short ribs there because I wanted to have a combination of meat and the bone to include in the flavor. And I think it makes it more complex, the different types of meats that you involve in here. Some Vietnamese people use like cuts of pork. I'm not doing all that. I'm sticking to beef just because that's what I know and I love. And my family just likes the plain cuts of meat. So I'm going to wait till that beef arrives because I just ordered it from a separate butchery that had different cuts. But in the meantime, I'm going to roast some of my spices. So I'm just gonna use a plain pan. Some people actually roast theirs directly on the burner, but for the smaller spices, it just makes more sense to use a pan like I'm doing right now. So what I've got here is I've got some pieces of cinnamon. I've got nutmeg, which is like supposed to be a replacement for black cardamom. That's one of the ingredients that I wasn't able to find here. Star anise seeds, and then I've got a whole bunch of fennel. I don't know if you can see it here, fennel seeds. So there's the nyama. We interrupt this regular scheduled program to bring you a grocery haul, and this is for the pho. I've got bean sprouts, I've got some green onions, a lot of white onions, and fresh ginger root. Now these are gonna be critical, these two, the onion and the ginger, they're actually gonna be roasted right now. So I'm going to roast my spices, and then I'm going to put them into a bag that I can use to keep the spices from floating all over the pot. So this is my bowl. I don't know the exact proportion. Y'all, I just let the ancestors guide me. So that's how much I'm using for a huge pot. And mind you, this doesn't include the coriander seeds. And I think I've also got, what else? I forgot what else I have coming, but I've got something else that's missing here. I'll include that later. But I'm just gonna roast these in the pan till they're nice and fragrant, a little toasty, and then I'm going to put them into a cheesecloth. And mind you, I've got a ghetto cheesecloth going. So I have hair nuts that I got. They're sterile, they're clean, and I've layered 2 of them. I'm going to put them in this bowl, pour my spices into here, and then tie it up. This just prevents the spices from floating all over the pan because I want my soup to be clear of the spices, but I do want the flavor. So this is my ghetto cheesecloth. Let me know in the comments where I can get cheesecloth in Kenya. So once this is nice and toasty, pour it into my ghetto cheesecloth. I don't want to burn it. It smells so good. There's more fun to be added into this mix because it's going to include coriander. And now I'm going to roast. Now I've got some onion halves. I just peeled the onions. I'm going to cut them in half. And these ones I do prefer to roast directly with the roaster. So what I do is I grab a set of tongs, hold my onion firmly in the tongs, and then turn on the burners. and roast the onions here until they get nice and toasty. You can like lay them directly onto the burners, do whatever your heart directs you to do, but you do want to toast them because this makes them more flavorful. Definitely notice a difference when I just use the onions and just chuck them into the pan. So you're gonna roast onions and you're gonna do the same thing for a thumb of ginger. And I've got 2 onions, so here's another one laying up here, and my last one right here. Oh, it's perfect. It's starting to burn up exactly like I want it to. You see? You can see the black edges there. That's what I want. Yes, yes, yes. So that's about nice for me. It's a little bit burnt on the edges. I don't know if you can see that. Gosh, come into focus, please. Okay, my ginger is nice and toasty, and these bits of onions are good. Yeah. So I've got my onions and ginger, some of my spices, and we'll pause here until I get the rest of my fat sheets. So here you can see that there's a big pot of meat on the stove, and I didn't have my camera set up when I got this ready, but I just want to explain what I did. The same soup bones and the flank steak that were there in the pot are still there, but I've added on some beef ribs that have arrived. I think they're short ribs. All I did is add them into the pot and then fill it up with water. And now I'm going to start getting my spices ready. You saw that I already roasted a whole bunch of other spices, but now I'm going to go in with smaller spices, and these are also going to go in the cheesecloth. What I just showed you was cardamom. I'm going to use a healthy amount of cardamom because the recipe calls for black cardamom, but I could not find black cardamom, so that is green cardamom. The next spice I'm going to add to the pot with the green cardamom are cloves. I use whole cloves. I could use the ground cloves, but again, I want this soup broth to be very clear, and so I don't want the spices actually floating around. I just need the flavor infused in the water. So I'm going to use as much whole spices as I can, and that's pretty much everything that I've used besides the salt and rock sugar. Next, I have some whole coriander seeds, and also going to be using a healthy serving of this. I'm going to show you what the proportion is in the pot, just because I don't use the actual measurements. I just kind of go with the flow and go with what my heart tells me I need to use. This is about, I think this is my 2nd or 3rd time making these noodles, and so this is what I remember doing. You can see that the proportions of the cloves and cardamom of coriander that I've used in the pot, and I'm just toasting those. I've got about 1.5 kgs of beef shoulder. I've got 2 kgs of beef short ribs, about 3 kgs of beef bones, boiled, like just to boil, and then 1 kg of like a rump roast, I think it was. And so it's a lot of meat, but you know, 3 of those kgs will be taken out because you can't really eat them. So what's left will be just the edible nyama, and it's not quite as much. My family eats a lot of meat, but it ends up being just perfect for a bowl of soup. And so now what I'm doing is I'm boiling the meat. And you start by boiling it kind of slowly, because what you want is you want the water to have a bunch of impurities right to the top. The noodle soup has a really clear broth, and that really clear broth involves you removing all of the impurities. I promise you that's what makes it taste really, really good. So I'll let it boil one time, and then I'll remove everything that I see that rises to the top of the water, rinse off the meat, and then put it back on the stove to boil. Okay, so this is nice and toasty. It smells so good. Cardamom, cloves, and coriander. And I'm gonna add this to the spice cheesecloth that I made before. It's just, you can see kind of smoking a little bit. Oh, it's so good. Oh. So that's the basis of our spices. You have a bunch of aromatics like the charred onion, the charred ginger, and then a whole bunch of spices. Later, we're gonna add in some rock sugar, and I couldn't find rock sugar, so I just got sugarcane jaggery. You know, you just gotta make do with what you've got. Some fish sauce to give it a little bit more of the umami flavor, some salt, and that's it. And it's gonna taste amazing. So these are all the spices. So again, these are just hairnets. I don't have a cheesecloth, but I'm just layering all of these hairnets because they're supposed to stop even a hair from going through. And I'm just gonna tie knots. Okay, I'm gonna loop this around one more time. And there you go, here's my spiced cheese ball. These are the other aromatics that I'm gonna be adding. I added a few sprigs of green onion, the onion that we charred before, and a little bit more ginger. Then I will add in jaggery sugar, just 1 block. And I think I'll just use all of this. It's about half a bottle of the fish sauce. I'm gonna add this salt. Why not? That water's gonna be thrown out anyways. I'm gonna add this salt to the bowl of spices and everything, because I'm just gonna dump this directly in. So this is the stuff that has come out of all of the meat, and believe it or not, we're gonna get rid of most of it. All the meat and the bones are gonna stay the same, they're gonna stay there, but all of this is an impurity, so-called impurity. So it comes out. You gather all of it, and in fact, I'm gonna take this water, dump it out, and rinse the meat. That sounds so bad because you're thinking, oh man, all of the flavor. But again, I promise, this has been done by millions of people for probably hundreds of years, and it tastes so good if you clear all of this junk off. So let me do that off camera. I'll dump all of this out and put it back on the stove for you to see. Oh my God, it's heavy. All right. So I'm going to turn the heat back on and boil it and boil it. So this is what I took out so far. So that's it. This is going to boil for like 4 or 5 hours. And I'm going to keep skimming stuff off the top as it comes up because you want a really clear broth. As you can look in here, you can't really see a lot of oil floating around. And it looks like a hot mess, but I promise you it's going to taste so good. I will probably let this boil tonight. We're gonna eat something that we have leftovers, so we're gonna eat that tonight. And then tomorrow, I'll show you how the bowl gets assembled with the noodles and the toppings and everything, and I'm so excited to eat this. So, see you tomorrow. Hey y'all, it's the next day and I wanted to show you what my soup is looking like. Don't judge me, it looks so bad when you actually look at the soup, but I promise you it actually tastes really good. So this is it right now. You can see like the onions are a bit translucent. Everything is pretty soft. So you can see the meat is really soft, like I'm just ripping off pieces. Just like this. Very soft, that just came right off the bone. And so it's gonna be very tasty once we cut it all up. This is again another piece of meat, and you can see it's coming up with my very, very fragile tongs really nicely. So this is gonna be delicious once it's actually spooned on to the noodles. So yeah, I added water about 3 more times. Gosh, I don't know how many liters that is. Maybe about 10 liters. And it's been boiling on a very low setting for a long, long time. Not necessarily overnight, like I boiled it up to, I think it was like 10 o'clock. Then I started again this morning. But you can see it takes a lot of time, but this is a huge, huge pot. And for my big family, it's gonna last us for quite some time, at least 4 days. And the soup is just delicious. My son gets so excited when I tell him that we're gonna be eating noodle soup. So just wait till I put this in a plate. You're gonna love it. Okay, serious question. Where in Kenya do y'all get lounge clothes from? I'm hoping that y'all can tell me where I can get good loungewear, because I have this strange style lately that is a mix of like loungewear and kind of like going out clothes. And not necessarily going out, but like clothes that you would wear with like a full outfit. Let me show you what my outfit's looking like right now. This is it. And it's a crop top with these like flowy, loose, I don't know, I don't think you'd call them palazzo pants because they're kind of crop. I've worn them high-waisted so that I have like some coverage in my mid level, but yeah, and you know, the Puma socks that I got from Costco. So that's what I'm looking like nowadays, and I love this type of outfit because it is really breastfeeding friendly. I can just lift it up and get to there, but then at the same time it's cute. Like, I love these sleeves. I got this thrifted in the US. There's this store called Jomar in Philadelphia, and they have access, I don't know where they get it from, but they have like designer clothes. All the clothes that I got, I'd say about 50% come from Jomar. You know, another 10% buying new, 10% gifted, 10% thrifted here in Kenya. So I don't know where I don't know what other percent I'm missing. 10% elsewhere. But yeah, that's where I get most of my clothes. And I got this shirt there, and I'm hoping that I can find another white sweater just because I realize that I love wearing white. For now, I want to get to cooking the noodles so that way I can include what the final product looks like. Okay, so it is later that evening and I want to show you exactly how you put together the bowl of noodles. This is the soup as it stands. There's really big soft chunks of meat in here. You can pull it apart quite easily. Very soft meat. So I'm going to take a few pieces of that and put it on top. But first, I get some rice noodles that I've boiled. And I err on the soft side for these ones. By the way, it's Janchi rice vermicelli. I got these at the Chinatown in Kilimani. I don't know if it's like, it's near Kilimani Plaza. I'm not sure where. I think it's off Kilimani Road, maybe Ring Road, but yeah. So I'm going to take some noodles and put them in the bowl. Because these noodles are going to be for my son, I'm going to cut them. So this is the noodle. Then you take some soup. So here's the soup. I'm gonna pour that over, and I'm going to fill the bowl with broth. You smell the yummy noodles? And then the last thing I do is I grab some of the meat. So again, I had different cuts of meat, but this is the piece that I'm going to use. And now what I recommend that you do is you actually cut it on a cutting board, but I don't have time. So I'm just gonna use my fingers, and I'm cutting across the grain, like so. So that's it. It's got a lot of meat here. This is a very healthy sized bowl. I might actually take some of it out of this bowl. This is quite a bit. So he may not be able to finish all that. So I'm gonna take some out. Okay, I had to switch my memory card. So as you can see here, I've got some soup, I've got some meat, I've got some noodles. Then you top it off with some bean sprouts, just a little bit. And I'm gonna cut those up as well. And then some cilantro, just a little bit, not too much. I don't wanna overwhelm the flavor of the broth. I've got just a little bit of green onion, and for him, I'm just gonna use the green parts, and he'll barely taste that once it's in the soup and the broth. And finally, or not finally, I've got some lime here. I'm going to squeeze this, being careful to filter out the seeds. Juice of half a lime. And then I'm going to add in some hoisin sauce. It's not spicy. It's kind of like a sweet, tangy flavor, I guess you could say. I like adding this in to offer a little bit more depth, not so much. And I'm going to stir that into the broth. And you can see it's turning a bit darker, but it's not too much. And I'm mixing everything together. And the last thing that I'm going to put over here is some basil. And I don't have Thai basil, which is my preferred option, but this basil is a Oh my God, that is delicious. So that's it. It's a bowl of soup. Hi loves, welcome back to my vlog. Today is another day. It is Saturday actually, and we have since killed that soup stash. There's like nothing left. So today I want to show what we're gonna be cooking for dinner. So for dinner, I plan to cook these things. Okay, so today we're gonna be having a pretty simple dinner. We're gonna be having cabbage, potatoes, carrots. Here's an onion, that's gonna be more. There's gonna be beef, and this is actually oxtail, so I hope to have that cooked very nicely, and then some chapati on the side. But I'll show you how this all comes together. But first, we go somewhere special.